Okay, cool. So last things last, we're going to talk about CIT program and teens. We're going to just go through the rules and guidelines about CITs to start. So CITs are 17 and 18-year-olds entering their senior year of high school, or they just graduated high school. Mad Hatter was one last year.
I was CIT for
2 years. So entering and exiting the senior year. And they go through the same application process as campers do when they go to camp. Anything else about that kind of stuff you want to touch on? You have a good background and knowledge there.
They get extensive training.
Yeah, they do go through trainings and stuff like that too. Sweet. So all chapters have a CIT program, unless otherwise approved not to, which is they're usually just really young chapters. CIT counselors must be 21 on the first day of camp. I don't think anyone in here is a CIT counselor, so that doesn't matter. CITs share a cabin separated by gender. And the difference between the regular ratio and the CIT ratio is that CIT is one staff member to every 4 CIT campers, where normally it's 1 to 3, just given their age. They get a little bit more freedom, I guess you could say. And what are CITs considered?
Campers.
Not what does it stand for? What are they considered?
Counselors or campers.
Campers. I'm gonna do that one more time. What are CITs?
Campers in training.
Don't treat them like a.
Counselor.
Thank you. Cool. So would that mean pop quiz? Can CIT counselors take younger campers to the restroom?
No.
Correct. They cannot. Sorry. Answering no with correct is always weird. Can CITs have phones or electronics at camp?
No.
Correct. Cool. Does CIT programming stop focusing on fun?
No.
Exactly. It's still supposed to be fun. They're still at camp to be campers and to have fun. They're just getting a little bit added leadership training, preparing them to eventually be amazing counselors, as Mad Hatter is going to be this year. And they all go through training and stuff to help them get set up there. Sweet. So those are some of the rules about CITs. Does anyone have any questions about like what a CIT is?
This is like not related, but who changed that?
It's online.
Whoever's a CIT counselor.
Yeah.
The CIT
advisor. I meant before, like they're
CIT advisors.
They're in camp.
Yeah, it's the like first couple days you're
No, it's
training.
training.
No, did you guys have trainings before or no? No.
That's what I just said.
I thought you said you had trainings before. I was like, I don't think you do. It's the training they do to set them up to be a counselor in the future. Yeah.
and they have there's a different schedule for CITs, so
They
like
do
there's
other
different
activities.
things that they like. There's like different standards. So like operations plan's a different schedule for CITs. Like they have to go through these different things that teaches them. I don't like.
Don't look.
There's like different things that they have to do, like a leadership one, or like they'll talk to like the different coordinators on cord board and like see what they did. Like Mad Hatter one year, like they like planned their own activity. They did like the pudding one, the pudding team bonding thing.
That's a fun team.
That was a fun one.
Yeah, I was the 1 year I was the only CIT.
Sweet. So given that the rest of the stuff is super specific to CITs and becoming a CIT of this portion, and the program for CITs, and you guys are not CIT counselors, we're going to move on to teens. So you guys, do we collect the note cards already?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So we're going to have to pass out more note cards. Cool. So everyone pass out the note cards, and once you get them, write down a couple responses to why are teens complicated to work with.
Why are what?
Teens complicated to work with. Like what are some things that make teens difficult to work with? Cool. So does anyone want to share some of the responses they gave? Sorry?
They talk back.
What was that? Why would they do that? It was a joke. I was talking back.
I just said that if you think about it, like they're more mature, so they're able to pick up on things a little easier that perhaps like maybe we don't want a camper to know. So like if something's going on with another camper and like two counselors go over and talk, like they might pick up on that more than younger kids, and then start asking questions and
Totally, they're really aware.
yeah.
To that extent too, you have to be even more careful with like what you say,
Yeah.
because where it might just go over a little camper's head,
Mm-hmm.
it's like double camp rules
Yeah.
when you're with the teens because it's not going over their head.
They won't do activities.
Yeah.
Too cool.
Yeah, they sometimes have that too cool for school mentality because they're old and they think that they're
I think
above it
I
in some
feel
way.
like that almost has to do is like they're going through a transition where they don't really like know who they are. Like,
Totally.
so that stems from it.
There is definitely a deeper meaning to a lot of this kind of stuff. And getting down to that is kind of important in camp if you do have a counselor doing something like that where they're not wanting to participate because they're too cool for it. Just kind of getting into the deeper meaning there or finding something they like to do. Just kind of going with that. Yeah, the age does make them sometimes feel like they're too cool to do an activity because it's childish or dumb, but they can embrace it and be better off in the end. Cool. So I'm going to have you guys write something else down. So, think about a time. Think about a time with kids where they are dealing with an issue or problem and they felt really good about the outcome. Does anyone want to share their experience and what made it successful with the camper or person you're dealing with? Locke?
I have like kind of like because I've taught kids swimming.
Yeah.
That's kind of easily translatable.
Totally.
And this kid was having problems at home because his parents were getting divorced, whatever. So whenever I was trying to teach him to swim, he was really standoffish. So after one lesson, I literally just like got to this level where I was like talking to him, like he was like seeing what we could do, and I was like, if you help me with swimming, I'll give you an additional like 2 stickers a day because that means you're doing extra great that day. And literally, he started to swim more. He started to interact with the kids more because he really wanted those 2 extra stickers on his little report card.
Totally.
And then he said I was his favorite instructor after swim lessons were over. So it was really nice just taking that little bit of time to make things a little better.
Totally. Why do you think that it worked? Just because the extra incentive, or?
I think it worked the fact that somebody actually talked to him about it, because maybe not everybody like takes the time to notice that somebody has a problem.
Yeah. Totally. That's a great example. Thanks for sharing. Anyone else?
Last year when I was in the blue unit, a couple of the girls were really, like they put up this front, like, they were the shit, this, that, and then when it came to like catch up, like really went inward, and it's understandable. And once their friends started sharing, they started sharing too. And I think that they just like felt really proud that they were able to overcome, being shy or whatever about their parents' cancer. And I think it was successful because they had their friends there to support them, their friends saying like, oh, you should do it, instead of a counselor who, they don't necessarily spend time with outside of camp.
Totally. So it's funny that these came through, these responses. So it said almost all the answers are going to fit into one of these 3 categories. Getting to know campers as individuals, or kids as individuals in your case, using past experience, or not being afraid to try, giving confidence and freedom in the sense that you did. So those are 3 different approaches and kind of ideas that we can think about when we're dealing with these issues that are kind of flowing out into the broader scheme of camp. Sweet. And then the last thing is a quick discussion / it says to write them down, we can just talk through it, of activities that work better for teens. So in our experiences, what were the most fun and engaging activities for teens or for us as teens, if you went to camp or something like that, or activities like that? Ropes course, something a little more physical, a little scary.
I think anytime you can use the older kids as like a teacher or a mentor for the younger kids, like make them feel, like more important or valued. And, like that's kind of why we have like the CIT role, because like that's giving the older kids like the opportunity to be a mentor or like counselor to the younger ones.
Totally.
So like if it's like lunchtime or something, or any downtime and like you can encourage the older kid to like teach a younger kid something else or like sit down and talk to them, I think that works really well.
I think there's also times where there'll be an activity where it is somewhat childish, and part of dealing with the teens is to get them to still do it. Like, there's activities that can't change, and you kind of have to just explain that it's an important part of camp, that we're all doing this, and, like, we just have to do it, even though it's not an activity that works well with teens that often. And that's something that's tough, but with a group of counselors, you guys can take care of it. You just gotta let them know how important it is.
Or even like being honest with them and just being like, I know this is like kind of silly, but like if we do it, then the younger kids will do it too.
Getting
like
on
just
their
being
level.
really honest with them. You can talk to them as adults.
Yeah, treat them as a peer.
Yeah.
Except when they bring up the big stuff, which is our next topic of conversation. Super fun. We're gonna talk about the talks. That's when teens ask about sex, drugs, and alcohol, death, suicide, mortality, and violence. All three. So why do you guys think campers want to have these conversations with you?
They want to relate to you more.
Mhm.
I feel like.
You're older, so they think you know more. Sorry.
No, it's not. Anyone else? Yeah. They think of us a lot as role models. And to that extent too, we might be the first person that like is actually listening to them with these questions. They might not have felt comfortable enough to bring this up to anyone else. And they were kind of struggling with it internally. So if they bring it up to you, that might just be because they really trust you. So does anyone know what a good response is to like question about this? Boom! Peaches, crushing it. It's almost like you've done this before. Yeah, so in general, it is, we don't talk about this stuff at camp. You can even thank them for like having the trust to ask you about it before they do it. Be like, thank you for trusting me to ask me about this. However, we don't talk about this stuff at camp. Camp is not about these kinds of things. But yeah, just be upfront with them. Shut it down. Shut it down, New Girl style, and make sure that you're in a solid position, that there's nothing that could go wrong there, in a similar way to like rule of threes, stuff like that. Yeah, so the one that's almost more common in my experience at camp is talking about like death and mortality at Kesem. Does anyone have kind of key things that we need to remember when like that kind of stuff's brought up? We talked about this earlier today. A little bit. Yeah. Don't say it's gonna be okay.
Yeah. I don't think we actually said that. Yeah.
What?
Don't promise anything. Can't keep.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So you never want to be like, it's going to be okay or it's all
Yeah.
going to be okay because you really don't know if it really is going to,
Yeah.
like, yes, it's all going to be okay eventually, but, like, you can't promise that their parent is going to be all right because we don't know, you know? So that's the number one thing.
Yep.
To try to avoid saying that.
Yeah. Just remember, like, you can thank them for being brave. Say that, like, that must be hard for you. This is a tough situation. Like, get to their level, empathize, but never say something that might not be true or
You can always
that
just remind
can
them
change.
Yeah,
remind them of the
Kesem-
family.
Kesem support network.
Yeah. And lastly, what would you say? This is a pop quiz for whoever wants to answer it. Camper asks you, have you done drugs? What's your response?
Yeah.
Cool. You guys were listening very well. That is CITs and Teens. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, wait, what's the number one thing to remember about CITs, though? Did we drive that home?
Oh, yeah.
Camper.
Yes,
Beautiful.
they're
I was
campers.
zoning out.
I
Nice.
literally asked it 5 times
Okay.
in a row.
Okay, good.
All right, any questions? If not, you guys can go.